Hello everyone and welcome to Tudo's Workshop. This is a new and exciting series on my channel where we'll try to enter into the minds of some of the greatest Dota 2 players. Of course, watching a replay and playing competitively are two completely different and separate things, so I'd like in advance to praise all professional Dota players for what they're doing. You guys are awesome. For today's video, we'll attempt to answer the greatest question that has ever been asked since the dawn of time. What does it take to win a professional Dota 2 game? Because Dota 2 is such a complex game, in order to answer the question, we need to break it into 4 smaller questions that at least would bring us closer to the answer. Why is the winning team strategy better? What exactly did they do during the game? When was the right timing to secure the game? And how did they do it? And we're going to start with the first question. Why is the winning team strategy better? And to answer that, we're going to look at the drafting stage. For today's game, we have some NA Dota, Team NP versus Complexity Gaming. This was played in the Boston Major Qualifiers, and the first bans for this game were the Shrike and Draw for NP, Batraider and Naga Siren for Complexity. We can see from the beginning some of the intentions of both teams. With Draw and Naga Siren bans, they want to avoid heavy pushes like Draw or split pushes like Naga Siren, which can take control of the map once the Radiance is completed. So the first peak phase, we start with the core Mirana for MP, followed up by the Timbersaw, which is a very versatile combo and tells us they have a very good team fight, and they might want to start looking for engagements in the early to mid game. For this reason, Complexity responds with the Warlock pick, followed up by the Slug, which can, in theory, counter the opponent's aggression.
5 seconds remaining.
The second banning phase, we have Zeus and Ursa banned for MP and Void and Disruptor for Complexity. These bans, I would argue, that are mostly so neither team gets an overwhelming team fight. Complexity are afraid of the control coming from the Void or Disruptor, and on the other side, 2 heavy damage dealers get banned. Next, we have the Conquer and the Sanking picked up for Complexity and Ogre with Sven for MP. So NP decided to show off their carry role with the 4th pick, while Complexity haven't showed up their mid hero yet. All 4 picks are strong picks. For NP, more lockdown and massive bursts coming from Sven, especially with the Ogre Magi buffs, while Complexity decides on additional control in teamfight, almost going for the combo Warlock Conquer Sanking, which can be hard to execute, but it has a lot of kiting potential against Sven. By this time, both teams have pretty much showed up their strategy and how they want to approach the game. From the pool of heroes that have been picked, we can see a very teamfight oriented draft where we can expect a lot of aggression from both sides, but especially from NP. The next and last bans were Tinker for MP and Rubik for Complexity, and the Tinker makes sense here as they don't want to deal with split pushing while still having that global presence threat. Lasers also can be a nuisance during the team fights, and they can hard counter their biggest damage dealer, Sven, until the BKB is completed. With Rubik out of the pool, Team MP decides to take the Skywrath Mage in order to counter Slug and ensure Sven has an easy lane. Complexity saved their mid hero for last, so OD doesn't come as a surprise, since they lacked physical damage, but I'm afraid they won't have enough sustain in these fights unless Kanka actually hits the boat also on its allies. We're going to come back at the conclusion for why is the winning team strategy better after we look at what exactly did they do during the game. The first notable thing of the game is NP going for first blood before the rune spawn. They have clearly enough damage to do so, and they even dive a tier 2 tower in order to get the Warlock kill. It may not be the end of the world for Complexity, but surely NP sends a clear message with this one. But in the early laning phase, ward placement is probably the most crucial part, and we're going to start with Complexity, where they decided to go with an aggressive ward into the Dire jungle, and the other one into their jungle, which NP will immediately deward. NP decides to go for an aggressive tri-lane and have Timbersaw this time on the safe lane against Sanking. Since they went aggro try, they got a very aggressive ward and 2 sentries into the Radiant jungle. This way they can spot any rotation, but also the main reason was to block the other 2 camps from Complexity, leaving them with a safe lane that has no real farm potential. Timbersaw also placed a safe ward into his jungle and a sentry to block the camp, but the sentry was dewarded by Sand King. NP are already showing some dominance into the very early game, so next we're going to see how the lanes worked out.
Oh no.
Complexity decided to go for dual lanes, which was a good decision, since this would ensure at least Sand King gets the farm he needs, but as expected Slug will have a very hard lane against the Sven, and Warlock actually even feeds a kill. The Radiant, however, are okay with this trade, since OD is dominating mid in CS. But the first notable rotation comes at the 4-minute mark at the top rune, where Ogre joins Mirana, and a high-class play by Eternal Envy baiting the OD into a bad situation. This compensates a little for the CS disadvantage in mid, but so far everything is going more or less as planned for both teams. The next rotation happened at around 5-minute mark, but it took almost 2 minutes to secure the kill. The attempted smoke from Ogre and Skywrath to gank OD failed, as OD was rotating top to try and kill Timber, which also failed. Also, both teams used smoke to ward again as soon as the wards become available. Radiant will ward mid and the safe lane, while Dire will go for mid and bot rune, keeping close rotation to this side of the map near the Dire Ancients. It may be worth to say, all rotations happened as soon as the first words expired, and everyone was playing without the vision. At the 8-minute mark, we have the first big engagement of the game on bottom lane, where Mirana decides to gank and will force Complexity to mass TP. At that point, Moonlight Shadow is used, and because Complexity had no detection, the turnaround failed, and this drained even more potential network out of the Radiant through the forced rotations and the clear disengage by MP. To add on that, since the TPs are on cooldown, NP quickly translates this into the first objective of the game, and they get the top tower. Complexity tried to stop it, but it didn't work out, and Sand King almost gets killed in the process. By the 10-minute mark, we see a Helmond Dominator on Sven, and the Veil of Discord on OD, and we can understand some intentions coming from both teams. So what do these 2 items tell us? Complexity know and understand they cannot let the Sven free farm, and will try to contest the map through fighting, hence this itemization. NP, however, know that if they can assure control of their side of the map, they can farm the core items needed in order to have that desired dominant mid game. And whenever we see the first medium item popping up, I think it's time that the early game is over and the teams are starting to shape up a strategy on how to get control of the map and to decide on a long-term plan to secure the game. So when is the right timing to secure the game? At 11:30, Sand King gets its blink, the first big item with big potential, so Complexity decides to go for a smoke gank, and will get the Mirana at the 12-minute mark at bottom room. And with the blink reveal coming as a surprise, they manage to force a full engagement from MP, and even Sven needs to show up after the Mirana buyback. As unusual as it is, buybacks are very cheap at this stage of the game, and teamfights end up in a 2-for-2 with some clutch TPs out by Complexity. Next, we get to see some more action, with a push top that NP decides not to defend, and they go for a trade. However, Complexity had enough time to get the tower and come back to defend, and Slug even gets a kill on the Timbersaw. So we can conclude that Blink and Veil had really turned the tables as 5-men come bot to push on the next objective. NP are actually powerless to resist at this point, and they lose a lot of HP on the bottom tower too. As Complexity tries to minimize the farm potential of Sven, they catch him farming the Asians after dewarding the jungle and fake backing, and his team tries to aid him, but they lose Timber again in the process. Also notable are the words coming from Complexity that ensure not only the kills on Mirana and Sven, but also gained enough control in the area to disrupt Sven farm. This actually forces a full 5-on-5 engagement, as NP know how valuable the side of the map is to them at this stage of the game. Being at the peak of the draft, with the early game item they went for, the first team fight brings complexity on top with 4 kills. Slark also have the Shadow Blade for this fight, and they will keep being aggressive on this side of the map, forcing MP to fight or spread, and try to farm elsewhere their relatively 3 greedy cores. NP decides to fight and try again and hold this crucial side of the map, and this time they manage to prolong the teamfight long enough so that the Conquer Realm loses its effect. Even though they lost Sven right at the beginning of the teamfight, they spread between mid and bot and managed to take advantage of the complexity overextension. It finally ends up in a full team wipe, only with the Sven death in the end for MP. Again, worth to note the excellent positioning from MP, but also the ROM effect that even though it made it look like complexity was winning, it actually baited them into a bad team fight. With this and a bit more farm, which they clearly deserved after the nice defense, Mirana finishes Aghanim's, Timber gets his Bloodstone, and Sven the Blink as the third item after the Echo Saber. So this is definitely a perfect timing for MP to strike back, and if complexity wouldn't have overextended in the last team fight, it most probably would have been a different story. Meanwhile, Sand King did get his Eels and OD the drums, which would make the team network dead even at 22-minute mark. But the drums pickup is only used defensively, as they get away with only 2 deaths after their last engagement. Simple but effective gank coming from MP, using both Smoke and Moonlight Shadow, so they can get the best initiation possible from the fog. The usage of Smoke might seem a little bit counterintuitive here for some players, but it is used for a good reason. If they would have passed in an area with both wards and sentries, complexity would figure out what MP are after, and they would just back off in time. They get the T1 tower with this, but complexity still has a very aggressive lineup, and Slark manages to disrupt the NP movement towards their next objective, also taking up a courier in the process. Warlock did pay with his life, but complexity are happy to gain a little bit of gold and some more map control, since Moonlight Shadow was on cooldown and the possible aggressive movement from MP was actually unlikely. But as soon as Mirana ulti became available, there was no downtime for AP. They went straight into their next objective, got 2 kills and a T1 tower.
Radiant's bottom tower has fallen. Dominating. Own it. Dire's middle tower is under attack.
With no reaction from complexity and God's strength still available, they went and took Roshan. Complexity at this point, I'm pretty sure they knew what was going on and they react in a correct manner. They pushed the other 2 lanes in order to buy some more time for the team. And even though Slark manages to complete the Silver Edge and Echo Saber, there is no kill potential, since NP are always grouped together, with the possible exception of Sven or Mirana that will farm one of the adjacent lanes. The next movement of NP was similar to the last one, Smoke Moonlight Shadow combo, but this time Complexity learned their lesson and backed off in time. With no kills on the Dire side, Slark quickly becomes a threat and NP needs to back down on their own side of the map. This brings a small advantage to Complexity, as they can spread up and get some farm they desperately need. Next, NP decides to get tier 2 tower bot, and they stay a bit more in the area, preparing in advance for an initiation on Slark, as we deduce from the sentry placement. With Sven BKB, they really feel invincible, but Slark has an inspired moment and uses Dark Path at the exact right time. This allows Complexity to counter-initiate with both in Warlock Golems, and even if OD gets arrowed, he manages to get away with this newly acquired Force Spike. Sanking with an Epicenter and target Mirana, since Timbersaw had Roshan and Sven was very hard to kill, as a top priority, and finally, it is a 1-for-1 engagement with Complexity getting the better outcome. With no BKB, this gives a lot of courage to Complexity to be aggressive, so they dive into the tier 2 on NP's retreat. But a well-timed silence from Sky puts them into an awkward position, as they lose two very valuable heroes. This is debatable if re-engaging was a good idea or not, as Slark might have misclicked actually and went on Sven rather than Skyrath, because Sky was only one hit away and Slark actually has vision of him. Either way, we know this game was nerve-wracking, since the winner of the series gets a chance for Boston Major, so individual mistakes can happen. Since we're transitioning into the late game slowly but surely, NP want to keep their aggression going, and next Moonlight Shadow is spot on, with Kunkka and Sanking being the first victims, and Complexity, without their two main disablers, lose 4 heroes into this fight and the tower.
Mega kill. Own it. Killing spree. Radiant's top tower is under attack. Double kill.
They were clearly not ready and thought NP was on the other side of the map, and we can understand that from Slark positioning, which acts as a buffer on the mid lane. NP read that very well, ignored the Slark, and got the first lane of racks out of that. This game is far from over, but this kind of advantage can translate into full control of the map, and with the next Roshan, they can secure the win. With Roshan not being up yet, both teams kind of lurk into the Radiant jungle to contest the last bit of map that is still neutral and not into NP's control. Unfortunately for Slark, even though they knew they were there, he decides to farm the lane, maybe trying to bait them. NP quickly reacted and waited for the Dark Pact to finish before initiating with Blink, so 2 quick kills on Slark and Warlock will put Complexity into a bad spot for the rest of the game, since now their only chance is to defend high ground. With the use of BKB and a quick snipe on Kunkka, Slark is forced to buy back, which is what NP was actually looking for. With respect, they back off and wait until the next rush, even though they didn't have the boat for this fight. But I would argue they were expecting either a Kunkka buyback or just the team fight to last more than 30 seconds, which is the respawn time. All in all, it was a good composed decision to back and prepare for the final push, which brings me to the final question on how did they do it? How do you counter a heavy magic damage based team? With BKBs, of course. And this is exactly what we see in this game. Timber and Mirana decide to get BKBs of their own. Also, picking the right team fights is crucial, since every push will be countered nicely by Complexity squad with their ability to turtle. Next fight is at Radiant Secret Shop, and we can see how NP struggles to find the best position to fight even through the Moonlight Shadow, and Complexity managed to hold with the nicely timed Warlock ultimate. They still lose 2 however, and OD has to bar back, which puts Complexity into a chasing position since the BKBs were down. They do manage to snipe Mirana, but they lose 2 in the process, as Sven has already a Bloodthorn and a River into his inventory, and hits really hard, no matter the target.
Unstoppable.
Slark tries very hard to keep NP from getting any objectives by harassing their supports and then just running away. This buys some time for the whole team to join, since Roche is up and obviously would be the next objective for NP. This could assure a nice team fight for Complexity into a choke point, but no gem has been picked up yet, and they're forced to fight through Moonlight Shadow again. A good initiation on OD puts a quick end to the fight as Sand King tries to save him but tanks a lot of the follow-up damage by Skyrath, Sven and Timber. They also lose Slog eventually when Awi delivers a nice blink into Slog pounce and they just finish him up since Shadow Dance was used earlier into the fight. And into the final push, they also killed Warlock and without buyback, Team Complexity caused GG. So did we answer our question? What does it take to win a professional Dota 2 game? Well, let's recap. Why is the winning team strategy better? Well, in my humble opinion, Warlock was a debatable pick. They probably needed someone like Dazzle to mitigate some physical damage and also bring NP armor down, since they have a very tanky squad. Conquer Rom wasn't enough in this game, and I think they relied too much on the big combos in team fights. Another idea why Warlock wasn't the best pick, especially in the first pick phase, is because he's a greedy support and can be punished. It couldn't do enough in the early game to stop the aggression. Ultimately, I'm not saying Warlock is a bad pick, but it's not the first pick phase hero. Even though I love the combo from Complexity and is spectacular, I must give credit to NP's draft for this game. Very tanky and durable lineup and perfect for ganking and a lot of movement across the map, especially in the mid game with Moonlight Shadow. So what exactly did they do during the game? Well, I like both teams' aggression, maybe except some Complexity skirmishes in the late game, where they were kind of forced to take some big risks in order to get back into the game. The fights were amazing and coordination was spot on for both teams. I think what a team did better than the other one was really the timing and the positioning in team fights. I would give praise to Complexity for getting aggressive in the early game and coming back really nicely from a pretty bad laning phase. Unfortunately for them, they overextended once, NP punished that, and from there NP had reached their peak, went aggressive and slowly conquered the whole map. So when was the right timing to secure the game? Well, minute 33 is the moment where the game is either won or thrown. After the big Avion's ban, last core item before Sven is ready for full engagement, we see yet another successful gang and outmaneuver by Team MP, where they get the first set of racks, and then continuously force Complexity into bad team fights from there. So, how did they do it? Well, in order to execute such nice plays against one of the most skilled players of the planet, it takes better coordination and better concentration throughout the game, so I would argue that teamfight execution and great movement made the difference in this match. Worth noting is that there was no split push and no trades happening in this game, so most teamfights actually transition straight into objectives. So congrats to NP, they managed to take it 2-0 with a slaughter actually in the second game, but also congrats to Complexity for entertaining us with some of the cool wombo combos. Thanks so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't be shy and click the like and subscribe button. If you didn't like it and feel I'm missing something, maybe you wanna leave a comment. There are many individual plays that brought flavor to the game, but in my opinion, it was the team effort, and that was the focus of this video. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.